Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, the Green Party is pleased to support this bill, the first bill that deals, even in a very modest way, with animal cruelty in the past 11 years that I have been in this Parliament. And we particularly support the introduction of the reckless ill-treatment charge, and we congratulate the Minister for overseeing legislation with this new reckless ill-treatment charge, which we hope really will make it easier for the SPCA and MAF inspectors to make successful prosecutions for animal abuse. We do remain deeply disappointed, however, that the provisions of this bill do not apply to literally millions of animals which suffer from animal cruelty on a daily basis as a result of farming practices such as sow crates and battery hen cages. It is frankly absurd that the provisions of this animal cruelty bill do not apply to thousands of pigs locked up in cages where they cannot even turn around, or to the 3 million hens that are kept in cages for all of their lives. In fact, the provisions of this bill will not apply to any farming practice that is protected or rather legalised by a code of animal welfare. Anyone with a code of animal welfare will not effectively have this legislation apply to it, and that would, for example, apply to the intensive farming of cows. It's interesting too that the whole of Parliament will rally around and support a bill that lengthens jail sentences and gets tough on individual acts of cruelty to animals, while at the same time most parties in this House continue to turn a blind eye to even more serious cases of institutionalised cruelty to animals, such as the battery hen cage and sow crates. And as the animal welfare commentator Peter Sankoff pointed out recently, he said politicians only hate some kinds of animal cruelty and they're perfectly happy to promote other types. And this bill is a classic example of that. The Green Party does not believe that simply by increasing the length of sentences we will decrease the number of cases of animal cruelty. When we consider that only 10 people in New Zealand, actually 11, yesterday there was an 11th person convicted for cruelty to thousands of chickens, that's 11 people in the history of New Zealand who have ever been jailed as a result of animal cruelty charges. 10 years ago, Parliament increased sentences from 3 months to 3 years, but the number of people being prosecuted for animal cruelty did not increase. In fact, nobody has ever been sentenced to 3 years in jail for animal cruelty, so one does wonder, most in fact just get a community sentence if at all, so one does wonder what will be the purpose of extending sentences to 5 years. But we do hope that the charge of reckless ill-treatment in this bill will have some real effect. But this brings me to the major reason why there are so few prosecutions for animal cruelty in New Zealand, and that is that there are so few animal welfare inspectors and so few resources, so that even last year more than 14,000 complaints were made about animal cruelty, but only 44 prosecutions were actually made. And the reality is, as others have pointed out, we have only 7 full-time MAF inspectors undertaking prosecutions for animal cruelty, even though we have over 100 million animals in New Zealand. And we also have the fact that 92% of complaints about animal cruelty are made to the SPCA, which effectively means that the government has abdicated its duty to monitor animal welfare to inspectors from a charitable organisation, the SPCA, 60% of whom are volunteers and many of whom work only part-time. And the SPCA informed us during our hearings on the bill that they are unable often to undertake prosecutions because they're so short of funding. And it's interesting that the SPCA is the only enforcement agency in New Zealand dealing with criminal offences that has to finance itself through donations. In our view, there's little point in increasing penalties for animal cruelty crimes if the enforcement agencies are so under-resourced that few prosecutions are ever made. We're informed that only 3% of the cases that MAF investigates result in conviction, and only 0.3% of the cases that the SPCA investigates which result in prosecution. We're therefore extremely pleased that some money has been found in the latest budget to increase the budget to carry out prosecutions for animal cruelty, and that some of this money will make its way to the SPCA. So again, we'd like to congratulate the Minister for managing this budget allocation. Now, there were some very interesting submissions during the Select Committee stage of this bill. Federated Farmers came in and they proposed that the entire new clause of reckless ill treatment should be thrown out of the bill because they said it could expose owners of production animals to prosecution. Horror. In fact, they needn't have worried because farm animals or production animals, almost all of them are already protected by codes of animal welfare, and so, as I've said, it won't apply to them. But the attitude of Federated Farmers was extraordinary. Their view was that animal welfare standards should not apply to the entire farming sector. In fact, they said in their submission, they said the bill should be made clear that it only applies to domestic animals and not to production animals. In other words, they're saying there should be one standard in law, and one regulation for individual animals, for companion animals, and a completely different and lax law for farmers and production animals, because they said the farming sector generates so much of our wealth. Now, this is extraordinary, particularly since there have been some terrible incidents of animal cruelty by farmers. The Crayford farms have been mentioned, but there have been incidents of farmers literally starving their animals to death. And so it is completely intolerable that the farming lobby should argue that they should be completely exempt from the standards in this bill. Then the pig industry had the gall to turn up and tell us that it had been shocked by recent incidents of animal cruelty and that it abhorred, this is their words, any incident of cruelty towards animals. Can you believe it? The pig industry. When questioned about this extraordinary statement, it said they didn't consider keeping a sow in a crate for months on end where it couldn't turn around to be cruel. And the reality is, as long as the pig code allows sow crates, says they're legal, then somehow in law they are not seen to be cruel. They are seen to be promoting animal welfare, which they tried to argue. So it is extraordinary that we have the pig industry suggesting that somehow that keeping sows in stalls is promoting animal welfare, but that is what they said. And others have said that this bill was drawn up because of the incredible response of the public to some incidents, terrible incidents of cruelty to companion animals. But the truth is, there was a huge public response to the video footage showing the way that production animals, namely pigs, are treated in New Zealand when it was screened on Sunday last year. An absolute public outpouring, but still nothing has been done. The pigs are in their cages. The pig code has dragging on. It was supposed to all be completed last year. Now we're halfway through this year. No sign of the pig code. And now, it looks like the pigs are going to remain in their cages. So on the one hand, we're busily congratulating ourselves for this wonderful new piece of legislation which deals with animal cruelty, while at the same time we're procrastinating, evading, doing nothing about the pigs in cages, the utter examples of institutionalised cruelty to animals. We're turning a blind eye. I'm not allowed to use the word hypocrisy in this Parliament, but otherwise that's the word that would spring to my mind. Finally, I'd like to say that it's interesting, the pig farmers are going to have to wake up. Even in Australia, a major Australian pork producer has shifted its 45,000 sows from stalls from sows, from stalls to group housing. And the owner said there's no point trying to defend a production system which in the eyes of the consumer is indefensible. It's time our pig